right. Hello, hello. Nice haircut
Yes,
you got there.
you noticed. Yeah, I lost 14 pounds, and it was an amazing experience. I only knocked the barber out once, and she knocked me out about 4 times. But we finally arrived at a conclusion, which is me somewhat hairless, and that's not a bad thing.
And the barber was human, right?
Oh yeah, she was very human. She has an 11-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl, and all kinds of wonderful adventures going on in her world.
Ah, so she's a hairstylist.
Well, she likes to think of herself as a barber. She's a real down-to-earth girl.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she's one of those, give me a six-pack and we'll get her done kind of people.
It wasn't a lawnmower, anyway.
No, she's more refined than that, but there were electronic devices involved. And
So
that's
how's the day?
Actually, this has been kind of a little bit of a misfiring day, things starting off and then me having to go back and start them up a second time. So that
Oh yeah.
kind of is in keeping, evidently, with the theme for today.
So I'm
Uh,
fitting right in. Oh, that's nice.
Absolutely, yes. The moon is in Aries now, so we'll see all these Aries people get out there and try to force their way through. The ram energy. They like to batter down things, batter down the door, and show up in your living room and sell you some Mormon literature if you're not careful.
Well, I mean, you got to give them credit. They don't sell you; they give you the books for free. So
Oh,
you're willing to have discussions with the Mormons, with the missionaries, then they'll give you the books for free.
that's probably a good thing if you're trying to get rid of an oversupply of books. That is a very good way to approach it.
It's
And
it's good if you're looking for an additional paperweight. If you're running out, you got papers stacking up, you need another heavy book, a book about wars and death and fighting a lot.
yes, that is the dark side, but everything here has a dark side. So,
Yeah,
the that choir, the Mormon choir, every
the
once in
tab.
a while, a bunch of those kids go out and do something amazing, and they did a production of the Lord's Prayer in Africa, and it's really an amazing video and beautiful, beautiful rendition. So it's in Swahili, if I remember right.
And that's a tabernacle choir.
No, that's evidently the missionaries have their own little
Oh,
side adventure going on, and they
probably the ones probably in the Swahili mission field or something. Yeah.
right, right, and they did a good job. I mean, I it's one of my favorite videos, so I highly recommend it. It's the Lord's Prayer, and it's the Mormon youth group or missionary group to Africa that produced it.
Sounds good.
So now we've made a plug for the Mormons. We might as well get the Jehovah's Witnesses in there too, right?
Just answer the door. That's all you got.
Yes.
Just answer.
They've been waiting there. They're starting to grow moss on their north side. So open the damn door and let them in. But that's what it's all about. Everybody's got their own idea about what heaven is and what hell is and who God is, and they're going to present you with a persona. They want to personify God, and of course, we who are struggling on our own individual paths have come to the conclusion that God is beyond having a persona. God is the ultimate expression of life and love. So It's not something that the Course in Miracles tries to sell you. The Course merely presents the facts, and if you can handle it at that particular moment, then you're on your way. You're on the yellow brick road.
It's funny how people still out of that same addiction try and personify, who wrote the course and making it into actually being Jesus. And I completely understand. It makes perfect sense. But even just this identity to the Christ consciousness and the Christ mind and so on, and making it into something, which it's tricky. It's tricky. We're currently obsessed with bodies and obsessed with the world, and to give up that obsession too quickly, is scary for a lot of people. What bodies? No, let me keep my body. What do you
Yes,
mean,
yeah,
God's not a body?
well, and that's the beauty of A Course in Miracles, is that it's reiterated throughout the course. The course is not trying to force you to just jump out of your body, because that is, horrifically traumatic. But it is encouraging you to at least look at the body and consider whether or not, you want to be a body. And if you're at the top of your game and you're out there conquering the world and driving Maseratis and Ferraris, you probably will be hesitant to step out of the body. But if you're, in a hospital rotting with cancer, then that might be a pretty good option to give consideration to. So the beauty of the course is that it doesn't force anything on you. It doesn't force us to reject anything. All it does is it merely offers us the opportunity to come into clarity as to what it is that we have put our attachment on.
Agreed. Well said too. As far as how my revelations have come into this 10 dimensions of reality, it's kind of made sense out of all of this for me, that we have these different definitions of what God is and what heaven is, and if there's a hell, and all these ideas, and they all surprisingly fit into these 10 dimensions, that everybody's kind of talking about a specific one or another one or a different one, and taking their culture and perspective and putting it on it. And as far as A Course in Miracles is quite literally just attempting to get our fourth dimensional mind to perceive that same one first dimensional mind consciousness of Christ and realize itself, to then go into additional alternate dimensional perspectives, even such as a happy dream or a heaven and such. It's surprising how well it all fits together. Like, it all has its place, it all has its time and arrangement, and I mean, we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, we did an astonishing job, because we created an adventure here that is so convincing and so compelling that it really is hard to step out of being the participant and go back to being the observer. But once we have started to make that transition, then all of a sudden we recognize a freedom that we had no concept of. We had no idea that we could experience that level of freedom, and that we could experience that level of mastery and omnipotence. But it all happens only as a result of giving up this limited vision of who am I and what am I here to do.
Oh, it's true. And you just kind of, like, as you're speaking, I'm trying to relate and resonate with what you're saying, and it brings up these familiar sensations of occurrences throughout my experience, say my life, I don't know, but completely timeless sensations, that it's surprising how much, when you do go and experience on the other side, or have spiritual revelation or something, that it's more of an aha in a fashion that it's always been there, and you just realize, oh man, I've been just like playing stupid. And I just opened my eyes for a second and you can see, and like, oh, and then you slowly start closing those eyes again as you're interacting and reacting in the world again, and experiencing it, and just to do it again, all of a sudden you open your eyes, you're like, oh, I was so stupid. And I would literally relate that to myself, that I feel absolutely stupid when I'm just an ego. So
Yeah, it is dumbing down oneself, and it's like young Tommy. That deaf, dumb, and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball, and we could really,
I
eh, well,
don't know.
when we step out of our sensory experience, all of a sudden we attain, that higher level of mastery, where
Yeah.
all of the events in the world that are going on around us, we are able to direct them because we're working in alignment with the Creator and the Holy Spirit and all the various interpretations of that. But basically, there is no duality here. It's basically God in all these different forms. But our senses are what keep us trapped in the belief that
Yeah.
we are going to blow up the pinball machine and be a miserable failure. And when you step out of your senses, some amazing things occur. It only takes a flash. It only takes a momentary experience of your omnipotence, your separation from your personal self. When you step into that higher level of complete beingness, all of a sudden you're on top of your game. You're playing a pretty damn mean pinball.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I went to see this movie. I don't know why my mic seems to be going up in Hangouts lately. Keeps going up and down. Um, so I'm really loud right now. Okay. I saw this movie just the other day with my wife called Dark Tower, I believe it's called. And there's these people in it called gunslingers. And this is like a different planet, but it seems like post-apocalyptic on a different planet. And he has guns, and apparently his guns were made by Excalibur or something, forged by the same sword or something. And it's pretty cool because they have this oath that helps them focus. I think it's an oath or some sort of phrase, and it really inspired me because I was like, oh, that's perfect, that's beautiful. But so I've been translating, kind of making my own version of it, and I feel like it's almost exactly what you're referring to and talking about. Like it has three lines, but it goes kind of on the hands of this. You do not aim with your hand. You He who aims with his hand has forgotten the face of his father. You aim with your eye. And then it goes on saying, you do not shoot with your hand. He who shoots with his hands has forgotten the face of his father. He shoots with his mind. You do not kill with a gun. He who kills with a gun has forgotten the face of his father. You kill with your heart. And of course, in the movie, it's referring to quite literally his birth father. And as far as, well, it kind of gives that impression. But all I was hearing was he who I have the interpretation, but it's like you've forgotten the face of God, forgotten the sensation of God, and that you're not really doing this with your hands, you're not really doing it with your feet, you're doing it with your mind, you're doing it with your soul, you're doing it with your heart. And so I'm developing this interpretation of it, that just seeing where the inspiration for me comes from, that you're not really doing it with your sensory perceptions, as you were just saying, that you're simply, being this whole presence, this whole essence. And there's this one part in the movie where he actually does aim with his mind through like off to the side of his body, just pointing the gun through houses and through clothes hanging and bushes and trees, and it hits this guy right exactly where it needs to, where he's intending for it to hit. And I'm not too concerned about the whole gun shooting and the death thing, but it's more about that he, it's all in his mind, and that's what it was referring to as far as the inspiration to me, and it was pretty intense.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking that out. It is, that is Stephen King's, the pinnacle of Stephen King's writing efforts. Most people consider The Dark Tower and that whole Magnus Opum that he has created there to be his most brilliant work. So I definitely am up for that one. And interestingly enough, there was another little movie that really didn't get that much attention. It was one of Chris Evans' early efforts, and it's called, what is it called? I have to look it up here.
While you're thinking of that, I didn't realize it was a Stephen King novel. Is that what you said it was?
Yeah.
I feel like the movie had a lot of potential, but it kind of came a little short, and it didn't quite have that pop. But it was pretty good overall. I would, I'd see it again, mostly because of my personal reflection in it and dealing with the mind. And, that whenever I think I'm dealing with somebody else, I've forgotten the sensation of my source. I've forgotten the face of my father, and the face of Christ, or whatever you want to say. I do not converse with other people. I converse with myself. I converse with the mind. I converse with literally the face of my father.
Right. That's exactly how it works. And the movie I was struggling with there was Chris Evans' movie Push, yeah, wherein there's a whole subculture that has evolved as a result of government experimentation with people who have an excessively high level of mental abilities, mind control, telekinesis, teleportation, all that sort of thing. And it's, it didn't make it into the big arenas as far as its visibility, but it's really worth checking out. And it was one of the first movies that was an all digital production. So they got away from, reels and reels of film and did everything in a digital format. And it's got some interesting aspects to it. It's worth checking out. But you do see a lot of Course in Miracles ideas that pop up in that one too.
Yeah, pretty much any movie that has somehow breaking laws of physics in some fashion, I find very inspirational. Even and even if it's not there, but if I'm looking for it, which I usually am, looking for somehow the symbolism and God speaking to me and everything is, then I start to relate to it differently. And my wife usually looks at me all weird while I'm all getting excited. I'm like, oh yeah, this is awesome. She has no idea. She's like, what are you talking about? It's a puppet or something, something like. And I'm all getting into it and excited about it. But yeah, maybe we can get into Push or something for our movie conversations. And anybody else out there, we've been getting into talking about inspiration in movies, and I'm sure it's possible to join in with those. I'm stretching out invitations that I don't have. But you can be a part of it by watching, if not sending comments and discussions, and even having an idea of a movie of your own that you wanted us to, that you thought was inspirational and had somehow even just spoke to you even through symbolism and not direct metaphysics or anything. So I've been enjoying that with, I joined Barrett and One Feather the other day on talking about Groundhog's Day, which is more of a direct metaphysical one, which is pretty cool.
Yes, and actually it's interesting. Bill Murray just recently went to a Broadway production of Groundhog Day and was commenting about how, you know, how much the movie affected him and how profoundly insightful the movie was when it was originally produced about 20 years ago. And we have that available for your viewing pleasure on Miracles in Movies, and you can find that on the collective website, themiraclewithin.org. You can go there and find all of the video threads that we are doing and some of the audio things that are happening too.
You know, it reminds me of a one-act play that I directed in high school, um, which it was called Sure Thing. And every time I watch Groundhog's Day, especially when they're in kind of a relationship doing dinner and drinks and stuff, this one-act play was all about pretty much the success of their relationship. And this guy, it starts out like coming up to the table saying, "Is this seat taken? Can I sit here?" And it rings a bell because once she says, "No, please, I'm waiting for someone," we ring a bell and it starts all over, and it like starts the next line. And so all throughout this thing, there was hundreds of bells, and every time they go into some weird comedic or random sentence or something or reply to each other, then it starts over. And it's like ultimately it came out to be this perfect conversation that led to the success of their relationship, and it is pretty entertaining. But to be able to have that like today, I mean, can we just ring a bell and just start over?
Well, actually, that's what the atonement is. That's the bell that, you know, it cracks the wall of resistance that we've put up. And it's in those cracks that the light streams in, and all of a sudden, you know, we're able to transform our life. We're able to transform our understanding of life, and that's the first step in making your life different, is to understand what life is. So it's
true.
It's pretty interesting how far we have evolved just in the last, you know, 30 years. I mean, I'm 71 years old now, and the world I grew up in was so profoundly limited and so profoundly different. And you know, I think it's a glorious thing that we have resources that are available to us to share and communicate and assist each other, because really that's the only point of life, is to join the collective, to be a part of the greater adventure, and to see the truth where the error and the illusion tries to overwhelm us. Every time you can see the truth for yourself or for others, you know, you're helping to tame the illusion, and eventually then the illusion will just vanish, because it is an illusion.
Mm. Well said. So how do you see the truth? And for the untrained mind and people that really have no idea that you can just see the truth instead of thinking that it's some sort of existential knowledge that they don't have or something, like how is it possible, or what do you do, or what's the process?
Well, basically, it's stepping into absolute stillness. As long as your mind is engaged, that means that you are indulging the ego. You are listening to and experiencing the ego on a multitude of different levels. And the mind is you know, the primary participant. The mind is always generating the experiences. It's always acting out. It's always doing things. And the only way that you can actually separate yourself from the illusion is to stop the mind, because the mind is perpetuating the illusion. And you don't have to stop the mind for like a century or something. If you can just make that tiny step out of being constantly engaged in the mind's activities, just for a second, you will experience a different level of consciousness and a different level of reality that will expand your awareness of what life is exponentially in all directions. And in the Course in Miracles, this is referred to as the atonement. And you break that down, and it's the at one ment. So you're at that place of oneness, of absolute total oneness. And that's what really the challenge is to be able to learn how to discipline the mind and direct the mind, control the mind, and eventually to be able to use that toggle switch and turn the mind off or turn it back on again at will. And it's a challenging journey. I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody's ass about it, because it really is something that is so foreign to our obsession with our thinking and with all of the sensory experiences going on around us, and having a judgment, having an opinion. Every time something happens, you have to form an opinion and take a stick and beat it to death if it doesn't live up to your needs or desires. And the truth is, it's very, very simple, but arriving at the point where you can experience it in that state of simplicity is kind of like crawling Mount Everest on your hands and knees, pushing a boulder in front of you. It is a challenge.
Yeah, I like that. And to like add on to the idea of stillness and finding that stillness, and as far as how to accept the atonement for yourself, and then it's not just one time, oh, I accept that somebody did something for me to relieve me from all these things that I think I have, or anything like that. But that one mint experience, and to recognize that and to see that, I often look for the symbolism in things and to see uh, how it relates to me. And if I see just how it relates to me, not that that's a finishing point or anything, but that's this bridge of connecting me to it, and recognizing, then eventually seeing that it quite literally is a manifestation symbolizing of what is within me. And to recognize that, then I am one with it and one with them. That how I relate to somebody is all this symbolism and this meaning which has manifested from what I believe in this symbolism and meaning within my consciousness, and I find some sort of purpose for it to then bring about this manifestation in this story. Even as my experience with you, can I find something in anything that we relate on this level? Not just, hey, we went through the same disaster once or something, but to actually see, almost as if everything you say, you speak from a subconscious place in my experience, in my mind, and that we are this one thing speaking to itself, like in a dream. I am asleep in a dream, I can be talking to somebody, and I can even learn new information that I think I didn't know, but I'm still talking to myself, a dream version of this other person. It's still my mind, and me, I'm still in my mind, and it's still all in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the again, the dualistic nature of it. That's the good and the bad combined, because we have this fear of transparency, of revealing ourselves to those around us completely. And that is because we have this ongoing interior dialogue where even the people we love the most, we can find, things about them that really tick us off in the moment, or really bug us, or that we end up creating a judgment about. And so the bridge beyond that is to come to a place where, again, you've monitored your thinking, you've forgiven yourself, you've forgiven everybody else, and you are willing to accept that union that goes on in the mind, because that's really the only way we can communicate, is kind of like the Vulcan mind meld from Star Trek. We have to be willing to let down our guard for a few minutes and experience that highest level of transparency and let the other person in. And as we do that, we begin to recognize a different level of relationship. Then we begin to realize that the relationship is taking on an element of holiness rather than an element of fear and insecurity and secretiveness. So and it's not a hard journey, it's not a hard process, but it does demand resilience, because your ego is going to fight you tooth and nail every step of the way. And because the ego likes to have this reserve ability to pass judgment on everyone around us and to form opinions on everyone around us. So we have to really put an effort into seeing everybody that we're in communication with as Jesus. If you can just look in the face of your friend or your oppressor and superimpose the image of Jesus over that face that is taking on the appearance of being real, then all of a sudden it becomes a less effort-filled adventure. Then it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, and it's like, see, people do this with other faces as well, the many-faced God. And then there's this, even with Krishna, it's a very common one to actually visualize Krishna in everybody's faces, and to to then see them as Krishna and relate with them, or teach them, or what's talk to them. There we go. That's a simple word. Okay, talk to them as if they are Krishna, as if they are quite literally your God, and that's pretty intense. An idea, and that's what this whole namaste is about, is that not just honoring the God in you as if it's a separate God, but quite literally the one God, and that it's in you and it's in me. And as much as if you really do this naturally, these defenses start falling down, because it knows everything about you as it knows everything about me, and we might as well just be honest and open and clear with each other, instead of being superficial, being these lies. That brings up something that I was telling someone else. In fact, I have a little recording of it about how people are just lies, and that everything you do is a lie, and everything you be is a lie. And even if it's some unholy lie comes up to some holy lie and asks them how to not be a unholy lie, and they're gonna forgive their lies and let go of their lies, until eventually they realize there is no lie, and that the whole thing's a lie. And even though a lie implies somehow negativity or guilt or anything, but it's just this whole character thing that we put on to our faces and put on to our whole being, just being a body, being a personality at all. And eventually you just start being yourself, being whatever lie you're meant to be, and you're not so much concerned if it's a lie or not, because you see past that there's there really is no lies. That, you know, there's no real illusion. It's not actually here. Eventually you just start being whatever it is you are, and you're not concerned if it's a holy lie or unholy lie or right lie or wrong lie, good lie, bad lie. They're all lies. Don't worry about it. Just be whatever you're gonna be. And when you do that and have that kind of journey of realizing, well, what is not a lie? And you realize the only one truth that really can be, and you keep that in mind. And that's kind of what that single eye to the glory of God is about. And then it's not concerned, it's not your concern about if you're, you know, a holy lie on the top of a mountain, shaved head, no offense, no, dressed as a monk, praying every day or anything, and a holy lie like that, or an unholy lie that's cursing and sinning all over the place and killing and everything. It's they're both lies, you know, it's not any different. So once you have that focus on the glory of God, then, you know, it's okay to be whatever you're going to be. And I know this is pretty much the antidote for, well, reason of, I don't know. the, what's the box? The box with everything. Pandora's box it is kind of the gift of insanity or Armageddon. Kind of, if everybody was just whatever they were going to be, society itself in a whole nother fashion. Because right now we have this society that is just based off of these moral standards in a fashion where everybody has to obey them in a fashion. And you know, I understand we don't want to kill off people, we don't want to hurt people, and I understand all that. I'm not really saying that that's not a good thing, but you know, what is God pouring through us? That's what I'm saying. What is God pouring through you? And you know, as far as you hear in this, people defending themselves, God told me to do it, you know, I wouldn't doubt it, but that's a little extreme for some people. Yeah.
Well, there's also the other side of the coin, the anti-God, which is the ego. And a lot of people give that voice in their head, which is the ego ranting, they ascribe that to God. And that's where I think that, you know, things really go awry. We've got Charles Manson, who was absolutely convinced that, you know, he was in constant communication with God, and all of a sudden we end up with helter skelter and all kinds of craziness. So the greater thing, I think, is discernment, and you have to look at what the voice inside your mind is saying in order to be able to understand where it's coming from. And if the voice is giving you a sense of enrichment and peace, if that voice is bringing peace and bringing you a sense of security against all odds, then you're probably on the right track. If that voice is involved with chaos and upheaval and bombs and blowing things up and, you know, creating mischief,
And
then there's a pretty good chance that that's not God's voice. That's your own voice that you go back to and drink from that well over and over again throughout the day. So again, it goes back to stopping all of the brain chatter and coming to a place of peace and experiencing the peace of God, because that's the one assurance we have. Is the first thing that's going to happen when you start to have that connection, when you start to have that contact with the divine, is that you're no longer experiencing any kind of disruption or any kind of insecurity. The peace of God is the first part of experiencing the presence. And if you feel that peace, then you pretty much know that you're listening to the right voice.
I like to think of the voices as interpreters more than directors or anything like that. That when you involve yourself in a situation, of course, it's natural, you're going to be, and you're going to be involved in all sorts of situations every single day. you have the ability or the opportunity to see that in a fashion that naturally endorses this idea of love and peace, or you're going to see that in a way that endorses this idea of death and fear and pain and suffering. And that's when it gets into defenses that you can, if you get really honest with yourself and you slow down, you start to see the reason you're acting in this fashion, the reason you might be getting angry or somehow upset or anything, is usually because you're thinking or interpreting this situation to somehow lead into your demise, whether it be a social demise, a business demise, a physical demise, or anything that it then involves, getting very strict and very serious and all this stuff. I see it often when Atreyu starts running out into the street. It's all about bodies, all about death happening right in that moment, that I am, getting very angry, whipping him back off the road, and then, yes, whipping him in the ass, butt, sorry, and just that whole idea, that seems justified, absolutely. It makes perfect sense, and it would be definitely a fast track if I really didn't want to react to that. And then I would be dealing with this whole death of Atreyu and the funeral and living without him and all these ideas that would just give another direction of forgiveness or anything. And so this whole, whatever path it might be, it still ends up, do I want to see this working for me and somehow in correspondence with eternal life? And is that voice interpreting it that way for me? Or is it interpreting with, pretty much this is the worst way to go, this terrible, and it's leading to death and my lack of existence thereafter.
Yeah, it does get to be really challenging. Parenting, I think, is the greatest gift, and yet can become the greatest burden that we experience in life,
So,
because you feel so very responsible, and the only way around that really is to just step out of that and just come to the that submissive state where God is present as the parent, and you're willing to be a child, and your child is somebody that you're carrying with you into the arms of God. So God is the parent, um, and that's only for a brief time. That's only for a very brief time while we're here in this material world, because God is the eternal parent, but
yeah.
is a parent unto itself. So then we've got the appearance of a paradox there. But ultimately, when we slide back into that state of serenity and dwelling with God, even that little tiny blip of a paradox fades away. So
Yeah.
getting out there with your kids is really, it's really exciting, and it's wonderful, and you do feel the love, and it's important, because it's a part of their growth. But again, taking responsibility for everything is a part of the journey, but then giving that responsibility to God is the actual way to make everything work.
Agreed. I definitely handing it over in some fashion or another, and recognizing that, it really is, like right now, it's all about me and God. And even though the roles seem to be in a different fashion, it just, this surrendering. The funny thing is, last night, so I've been interpreting the Tao Te Ching, and uh, Dr. Wayne Dyer, right? He has an interpretation of the Tao Te Ching, and the book has a picture of him on it. And I have several variations I'm interpreting from, and just kind of going from spirit, just reading what examples we have, and then going with spirit on it. And I was holding Link the other day, or yesterday, and he saw the book with Dr. Wayne Dyer's picture on it, and he got all excited, and he's tried to touch it and everything. And I think we came to the conclusion that my son is the reincarnation of Wayne Dyer. But anyway, that was pretty fun. And I'm like, oh yeah, my little bald boy, he looks just like him.
Interesting. That's very charming. And you know, if you go far enough on that whole thread of reincarnation, we're all the reincarnation of each other. So,
It's true.
you know, you have 7.5 billion of us here, but it all goes back to one individual that sought a momentary respite from being in the peace of God and decided, oh, I want to go off and be me. And look at where that led us on our merry ride around the world.
Yeah, the original ideas, the 12 representations of oneself, and yeah, it gets pretty intense. And that's all talking about the dimensions, and I just love how it lines up together and all fits in, and this eternal expansion of infinity. It's just beautiful to see it unfolding and knowing and experiencing it for ourselves. It's beautiful opportunity, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. And it's so hard to wrap our brain around the idea of infinity. And that's where, you know, the whole little me starts to fall apart and disintegrate in the journey is as soon as we encounter infinity, as soon as you go out at night and look up into the heavens and realize it just goes on and on and on, there is no stopping it. That is a very humbling experience, and it brings us back to the realization that, do I really want to be my ego, or do I want to be the true infinity, which is not filled with darkness but filled with light? And so it, again, it's that the basketball that we're playing with on the basketball court, and every once in a while we get a shot off that goes into the rim, the hoop, and then we're back down to just dribbling around on the court.
What image comes to my mind when I say infinity lately is the movie Doctor Strange. That's one thing I love about movies, is that they get the graphics going, and you can visualize, you can see in front of you so many different things. On Doctor Strange, I'm assuming you've seen it. There's this part when he's being introduced to the infinite universes and variations of everything, and it's pretty intense. And I just see him, he's like, as a body, he's falling all over in like outer space, but it's unfolding in all different variations of. And at one point he looks at his hand, and his hand's made of little hands, and his little hands are made of little hands, and little hands are made of little hands, and it keeps going with hands. And it's really intense. It reminds me of that artist. Well, I don't have his name in front of me. So I think it's Gray, Alex Gray. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I recommend that movie. That's pretty trippy, especially with that imagery.
Yeah, Doctor Strange definitely was one of the better productions of Marvel Studios, and now they're going to be bringing the Doctor back with some interesting allegiances that he'll be forming. And that's again kind of a fun aspect of the way the dream is setting itself up. We have a couple of different studios that are in pursuit of different themes, but Marvel Studios has really been very focused and concentrated on not only creating all their superheroes, but creating allegiances or friction between the superheroes. And they keep pumping out really fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
One of the newer ones and better ones that I really go back and watch every once in a while is Ant-Man, where Paul Rudd plays the Ant-Man, and he shrinks down to become the size of an ant. and then what kind of mischief he can create ensues. And so it's, it's got a lot of Course in Miracles ideas threaded through it, but that's the beauty of the presence of God, is that God's going to show up in everything. You can't suppress the presence of God in every aspect of life.
Yeah, that willingness to be creative and searching kind of within to develop new ideas, what it seems like new ideas, it definitely opens up the spirit in such a different fashion, a new fashion. I remember when I was 12, I was trying to think of a new superhero because I wanted to name myself a superhero. We were joking about being Superman and Batman. And I'm like, I want my own. And so I, some reason, got the idea of going through the alphabet and like A man, B man, C man, C man, D man, and then came to O man, and some reason O man stuck with me, and I'm like, and I even started drawing out and describing what powers there would be. Then I even made this team called the O Men, and I didn't know what an omen was. I had no idea. And I started developing woe man and a man, like amen, and sea man, but he likes breeze underwater and everything. And then when recently I started realizing that this was showing up in my life, even oh baby and oh boy and stuff. And that these people were actually in my life. And I was in this situation, and it didn't take long, probably when I was about a teenager, when I discovered the meditation and the symbol of Om. When I was wearing the shirt with big Om on it, I looked in the mirror and realized, hey, I'm Om man. And and that through this desire to create or have this creativity of superhuman stuff, I was tapping into the spiritual realms and listening to guidance, and guidance was just using the symbols that I was willing to see, willing to understand, this case being superhuman abilities and everything, to attempt to teach me the truth. And eventually I got the got the message that being old man at the time was really, I'm trying to tell you, you're the son of God. I'm trying to tell you, you're Christ here. And I'm like, yeah, Christ can, or well, oh man can move things with his mind, and it's like he's in a dream, and he knows everybody's thoughts. And like he was totally trying to tell me, hey man, come on, wake up.
Yes, and well, that's the beauty of the way the whole thing works, is that really we are just walking ourselves home and doing it in a large group, but we're seeing the signposts everywhere in all directions, and I think it's a very dynamic period of time, because it feels like, when you take a pencil and you break it, it feels like that snap is about to happen, where we're able to more clearly see duality. We're able to more clearly see truth, and perhaps see each other in a more loving way. So we do seem to be coming up on some sort of a significant pivotal point. And, again, that's just another step in awakening from the illusion of that separation that we believe is so prevalent around us.
I would agree that, yeah, we're waiting for something, as the oracle said to Neo. You're just waiting for something. Like, no, you must not be it. You must not be the one. Waiting for something. Like waiting for the last straw, waiting for that snap.
Yep, for the pencil to break and for the camel to fall down dead. And I'm sure we'll probably have people protesting about the fact that I killed a camel on the show.
No animals were harmed in the making of this video.
Yes, it was an imaginary camel and an imaginary discussion I had with an imaginary friend by the name of Devin. So
Talking to him over here.
all of this is for your benefit. Ultimately, that's the final nail in the coffin, as it were. It is all for your benefit because you and I are one.
Indeed. Therefore, I must be grateful for all your work and everything you do for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank the Holy Spirit for giving us that pillar of fire by night and the pillar of smoke by day to lead us through the desert here.
Wish it was that direct sometimes, huh?
It generally is, unless you're standing inside the pillar of smoke. That's when things get all screwed up.
It's coming from my pipe. Oh, geez, that's what...
Pedal faster, pedal faster.
Well, thank you all for tuning in and being here, and I look forward to our time next week.
Yes, you have a great week, and give the babies my love.
Thank you. Yeah, Wayne Dyer.
There you go. Bye.
I'm dreaming.